Hey everybody, welcome back. We are ready to get working on our fretboard. We've come a long way so far and we are kind of getting close to that finish line. I hope you guys are progressing through your build with as few problems as possible and that you are confidently working your way toward the end goal, and that's to get a playable instrument. There's a few things that we need to go over with the fretboard, and I want to get started on that right away. So let's take a look. For myself, I still want the opportunity to take the neck off and fine-tune all of the sanding, because there are still some sanding marks in here. I can kind of see them, and yeah, I can see a couple of scratches in here. I want to progress through all of these grits, and especially on this shoulder area, without getting into the guitar body itself and getting these cross grain scratches. I want to be able to attack both of these independently. You certainly don't have to. There's nothing wrong with getting it glued on right now and doing those together. You just have to be careful. You tape the areas off. It's not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and radius the fretboard right now. And if you have bound your fretboard, your binding is a little bit down from your fretboard. So this radiusing process is going to kind of match us up with the top of this binding. The easiest way to do this is to take a block plane to both of these sides and try and round it off a little bit before we get to the sanding process. You can sand the whole thing, but if we can take off this 0.5 millimeter to 3/4 millimeter on both sides to get it a little bit shaped first before we start sanding, it is going to be a whole heck of a lot easier and a lot less messy, because this ebony dust gets everywhere. The first thing I'm going to do is put a protective cover or shield on my guitar body, and that is going to help in case I slip off with a plane, and it's also going to protect the top a little bit from all this dust that we're going to be getting. Black dust and a light colored spruce top don't always go well together. Just going to put a little bit of an angle on this. And work my way over kind of flat. You can do this with really any plane. You can use one of your block planes, you can use your low angle jack, you can use a jointer for that matter, but I'm not worried about getting it flat and level at this point. I really am looking to make myself less work in the sanding process, so I'm taking some of this off with the plane first. And it looks like I've got most of the top of the binding at least touched on for right now. So I'm going to move over to the other side. Any kind of ebony is going to be incredibly hard, and it is going to stand up to really any of your tools quite well. So getting through it with a plane can be a little bit of work. So a block plane may have a tougher time than something with more substance like a low angle jack or a 4.5, or something a little bit larger with more heft and weight to it. Looks like I've almost got it. And I can see from where I'm leaving marks and not leaving marks that I've got at least the edges radiused and planed. So I'm going to move to my sanding radius block. Now there are a number of different radius blocks available. You can choose really any radius you want. Generally, a 14-inch and a 16-inch radius are pretty typical for acoustic guitars. I am going to put a 14-inch radius on this. And I'm going to do that with a block that has the 14-inch radius built into it. I've put 80 grit sandpaper on it. I am going to see how close that plane work got us. Make sure when you do this that you've got your guitar neck well supported. You'll find that this is quite a bit of work. I find it pretty helpful to sand and then get all of the dust extracted off of there and then go back to it, because you can see where your radius is starting and ending, because you're going to end up with different sheens and different scratch levels depending on what you're using. Now, again, I'm starting with an 80, so that's pretty aggressive, but even 80 on this ebony is going to take quite a long time and a lot of work, because it is such a durable wood. Now, these radius blocks aren't that long, so it is easy to develop a hole because they're not long enough to get the whole fretboard at once. So you do need to be careful about pushing down too hard, getting too much pressure, and flexing the neck or bending the neck at the body. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but make sure that your neck is well supported. I've got mine supported in a couple places here, trying to support it along the neck so that I don't dip down. The other thing that I want to make sure that I do is take real even strokes with getting this nice and straight. Because if we're rolling over to the side, if we're putting too much pressure over here or over here, it is real easy to get this radiused correctly, but having one side taller than the other, one side lower than the other, having these uneven can be a real problem. So make sure that you're really, right over the top as much as you can, making sure that it's a nice straight line and that your pressure isn't rolling off on your thumb. It's real easy to come over on your thumb side, probably more so than your finger side, just because of the way that your weight is distributed. Even at 80 grit, this does not go away quickly. So you shouldn't be in too much danger of blowing through any measurements or going too far too quickly. This is going to take quite a bit of work, and you'll probably see that your glossy areas in the middle of your fretboard, the parts that you haven't touched yet, are still there for quite a long time. I like to clean up and vacuum fairly frequently, because really this dust just gets everywhere. I can see I am getting pretty close. I'm within maybe 1/2 millimeter or so, because I can see most of my shiny spots in the center are gone. It looks like I'm wearing pretty evenly. And if you want to, take a look from this side, look straight down the fretboard, and you can get a good idea if you are tilting one way or the other. And when I looked at it from this direction, I could see that this little spot right here was actually high. The rest of the fretboard looked good, but I had kind of this high spot here that I just got off. And right about now, you'll be thinking to yourself, holy cow, this is a lot of work. Because this is a lot of work. Try to make sure that your hand movement with the sanding block is going parallel to the fretboard. You really want to go straight up and down as much as possible. It's real easy to roll it over, like I said before, or even get it a little sideways. And if you get it sideways, man, that's going to mess up that radius real quick, because these corners here are going to roll over and take off all the work that you did. So as much as you can, parallel to the fretboard. Now, before we get completely radiused, now may be a good time to check, or if you know this already, if your saddle gap was over 10, under 10, if you know that you hadn't corrected that for some reason, hopefully you already have, but if you still had a gap that wasn't quite accurate right there, now is a good time to correct that, because before we finalize our radius and level on our fretboard, there is a minimal window of opportunity to correct this saddle gap. Probably by as much as maybe a 1/2 millimeter, probably not that extreme, probably closer to a 1/4 millimeter. Take a look and double check that measurement and see where you're at right now. And I'm going to do that myself. And I am 10 on the nose. Maybe 9.75. So if I needed to correct that, I certainly could. And the way I would do that is with my sanding block. Let's say I was a little low here and I needed to raise this up. Well, what I would do is come back to the nut end, and I would work real hard there for, you know, several strokes. I would move it up just a little bit, take a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer. And I would repeat that process, taking short strokes, little longer, in order to tip that back just a little bit, enough to get us another 1/4 millimeter up here. And since I'm at maybe 9.75, I may try that. I'm going to work hopefully you can see what I was doing, but short strokes, trying to get this down a little bit longer, and then to the 14th and back. So almost the whole way. Despite being able to fix things later and being able to specifically fix this saddle gap with a bridge height or a saddle height, I'd rather not compromise at that point if I don't have to, if I can fix it now. So pay attention to all those things with the end in mind. And I can tell from my scratch pattern or how glossy some of these places are here and up here that I'm not quite radiused, but I'm close. So I'm going to chalk up. I'm gonna give myself some chalk for the whole fretboard. And the reason I didn't do this earlier is because I already had my glossy parts where I could tell that my scratches weren't going through there already. But I'm getting close enough now that I'm gonna see where exactly I'm at. All right. So it looks like I've got a little bit left to go right here. I see some white chalk marks, which is to be expected. I've got kind of a flat area that starts about here and then gets more pronounced as we get closer to the end, which is completely understandable. One, because the fretboard's wider and we need to do a little bit more work because that radius is going to dig deeper on the edges. So from the 14th fret to the end of the fretboard, we have a little bit more work to do, which means that we're going to take a little bit more out of it, which is totally okay, because as I mentioned before, we're going to have a little bit of dive from the 14th fret to the end of the fretboard around a 32nd or a 64th. I also see back here where I've got a little bit left to go on the edge of the fretboard, and just a little bit at the center. So I've got a little bit of work to do here and a little bit of work to do there. So I'm not quite there, but I'm getting super close. But with ebony, close is always so far away. I'm going to chalk it up again one more time. All right, that got it, finally, good. Now the last part is this. Again, this is going to take a small dive from here to here. It's going to taper down. So I'm okay just looking at this area and taking short strokes. The flat I want from the nut to the 14th, and after the 14th, this is okay to go down slightly. And by slightly, I mean a 64th to a 32nd. More than that, we're going to run into some problems. Stretching those strings as we're trying to fret those, we could end up with some fret noise at the 14th. Larger issues if we don't get this taper correctly. Yes, that did it. Okay, we are radiused. All my chalk lines are gone. Things look level side to side. So we're done, right? Not quite. Now we have to level. So we'll call it good on radius, and we will move on to a leveling. We'll see you in the next video.